That's all right. Every side of mine is a bad side.
You can stay on the outside if you want.
That's all right. That's why I don't need this pointer. And I'm afraid to leave it to you, because I know.
Oh, you think I'm going to hit you?
Am I stupid?
You don't trust me? Chris, if you don't trust me.
I do trust you,
Okay.
but it's called payback.
Oh,
We are rolling, and you can start whenever you're ready.
Okay. Well, thanks, Randy. Thanks, Officer Weld. I appreciate all the information that you've given us so far about Enhanced 911. What we have here at the station is called the public safety. Start all over. Ding, 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 ding. I almost did it again. I knew I on a PSAP. Okay. I don't need the book. Public Safety Answering Point. I know what it is. Okay. Take two. Two. Thanks, Officer Weld. Appreciate all the information that you've given us so far about the Enhanced 911 program that we have in Ashland. What we have here at the Ashland Police Station is a public safety answering point, or called PSAPs. We have two of them located in the central dispatch area at the department. These are where the 911 calls come in. And usually what we have is we have the desk officer responsible for both PSAPs. This PSAP is the one furthest away from the dispatch center, and it's used if in fact we had another emergency situation. And we can use this one right now because the other one's being used for on-duty services as we speak. Just to let you know what this is called an alley screen and an Annie screen. The alley screen is the screen that shows all the information when the call comes in. And you never know when these calls come in. They may come in at any time. You never know what type of calls they may be. Oh. 911, you're being recorded. What is the nature of your emergency? That is the type of response that we usually have. This is a call that we just use to designate for our 911. If you can get a close-up of the screen, it'll tell you where the call came in, the type of call, business call. It'll give us the telephone number and the address. If there was a disconnect and there was an extreme problem at someone's home or a business, and we weren't able to speak to that individual, we at least have the address of where the call came in from. And our policy is to send, whenever we have a disconnect, is to send an officer to that location to check on the individuals that reside there. If this was a true emergency and they needed ambulance service, we would stay on the line and we would transfer this call down to the fire department. And this is the button right here which says fire. We hit that button and the call will just immediately transfer it to the fire station. The fire department has the same setup down their station, and they would take the call if it was an emergency situation for medical. I'll just release this call, and that line would stay there. All that information would stay on the screen until we cleared it or hit the cancel button. If you can hear that noise in the background, and if you could swing the camera around at a later time, we have two set printers over there that give us a hard copy of what's on the screen right now. So if there was ever a problem and we needed to confirm or we canceled the screen before we got a confirmation, we can go to the paper and find out all the information that was actually on this screen because it would be printed out. On the Annie screen, it's the telephone number that was made or where the call came from and the time. The flashing numbers that you see, it says OP and there's a this is a real call coming in.
911, you're being recorded. What's the emergency?
Now, if you'd like to take a look at that screen, that's the same type of screen. As you can see, it gives us the information that comes in again. Cables were able to give us another call, but it's the exact same situation. And again, you heard the person that answered the phone, our dispatch person answered the phone, 911, what's your emergency? We don't say Ashland 911, your emergency, you're being recorded, because we are a safety drop point to two towns, Holliston and Hopkinton. For some reason, and they made it this way for public safety purposes, if 911 rings 3 times and it's not answered after the 3rd time, this information or this phone would ring down here because we are the drop-off point. We are the backup point. Maybe there might have been a major accident and 911 is ringing off the wall, say in Holliston, and they've got 7 or 8 calls going. We would pick up these calls and we would monitor the 911 calls. So the person on the other end, if we said Ashland Police emergency being recorded, well, they know they dialed their Holliston number. They don't realize that it's being dropped off to a checkpoint, and we are this checkpoint for Holliston and Hopkinton. So our policy and all departments is 911, you're being recorded in nature of emergency. And they would tell us, again, the information would come up on the screen, the Holliston address, the situation that's being reported. We would then transfer the call to Holliston or Hopkinton via our police line and let them know, in fact, they have another situation. In most cases, they know the emergency that's being reported because they've already received 4 or 5 calls prior to. They just couldn't handle the number of calls that were being recorded at that time. You see all these little different buttons down here. These are the 4 trunk 911 lines that we have. So just in case there was let's say for instance we had a multiple motor vehicle accident and everybody was and their brother were calling, these lines would light up. And again, after the 3rd ring, if we didn't answer all of them in a correct response, it would get dropped down to Hopkinton because they are our response safety drop point. Another feature about this is that you may have 2 emergencies going on at the same time. And that's kind of important to realize because, granted, you have a car accident. And most say we'll use Main and Union. That's a common place where most people usually get in accidents at Main and Union. We get a report, 911 call, police emergency. There's been a bad accident at Main and Union. Yes, we have it already. And you hang up on them because you already have their information. You get another call or a subsequent call. Hi, you have a bad accident on Cedar Street. Sometimes when the person is fixated that they're getting a lot of 911 calls, you're not listening to what the other person may be saying. So then you go back and look, oh my God, I made a mistake. I just disconnected this person. That's why we go back to the printer. We can check and say, oh yes, in fact, there was a 911 call from Cedar Street. There's an accident on Cedar Street. At the same time, there's an accident on Main and Union. And you dispatch the proper individuals and cruisers and ambulance service to the scene on Cedar Street. There's another feature that we have that we weren't capable of doing before. If I can bring this over to you, it looks like a regular typewriter keyboard. And this is for those people who are hearing impaired. And we have what's known as the TTY phone. Any individual that has a problem with hearing, as hard of hearing, they would have a TTY unit in their home. And we are hooked up, both PSAPs, both public safety answering points, in this department as well as the fire department have TTY units. They are pre-programmed. We are also told now that we have to, whenever we get a hang-up, it may be an individual that is hard of hearing. So when we have a hang-up, we have to hit the TTY button, which is right over here. We have to hit it twice, and that'll activate the TTY unit. Right now, we don't have a call-in, so I can't really do that. But if, say, this line was working, we would hit the TTY unit, and there would be 2. We have 7 programmed, pre-programmed responses. 911, police emergency, fire emergency. Do you need police help, emergency help? And then the next line would be, if we got it, we would see this, the answer coming right across the screen. Yes, I need help. Go. And we would type in, what is your problem? Go. And they would give us all the information that was necessary. And in the meantime, we would always have the address as to where the call came from, and we would be responding the proper equipment and personnel to that home or to that business. But this is the unit itself. Before, when we had 911 calls with the hard hearing, it was operator assistance calls that came through. Now we can do a direct line. I believe we have like 7 or 8 in town that have TTYs, and so far we've never had an emergency at any of their homes that I'm aware of anyway. But we do have the capability of talking to them if there is an emergency at their homes. That's the basic public service answering point, or PSAPs, that we have. This is the Enhanced 911 program. And what this also does too is it gives us the ability of knowing when false calls are coming into the station. Basically, we have these up at the high school. We'll get a lot of fake calls from the high school with respect to, there's an emergency or a bomb scare, so on and so forth. And now we'll know. And what it'll say Ashland High School, and it'll give us the zone as to which payphone was used. And when it says a payphone, where it says CNTX here, I don't know if the camera can zoom in that, but it won't say CNTX, it'll give a $ telling us it's a payphone. These are the business designations up in here. So basically that's it for the equipment. Again, the police and fire have this unit set up. We have 2, and the fire department has 1. And Officer Well can continue with his speech. Thank you.
Did you ever get any prank calls
Yeah.
high school.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Well,
But the thing is, it's
Did you get any right after like Oklahoma or anything like that?
no. That's what we're afraid of.
yeah.
You know.
In terms of physical fitness, what do you require for them? What do they have to do in terms of being part of the bike patrol? They have to go through some type of physical exam before they join.
Oh yeah, that's going way back. Oh, okay, I can do that. I can cover that.
Um,
Yeah.
We could roll some footage in
next
too.
question anyone could ask is, in your opinion, is the bike patrol an important part of the action?
Yes, sir.
In time?
Alright, I'm gonna start tight on you.
Okay.
Do you have an introduction that you want to do?
No, I'll have a closing, but I'll do that at the end.
Alright, we're rolling.
Okay. As coordinator for the bike patrol, can you tell me what some of your responsibilities and duties are for each officer?
Okay, what I have to do is initially to coordinate the unit. We first of all had to attend an academy. Officers are picked physical fitness, ability to work by themselves or in a group, and that sets some basic standards. Now, as a coordinator, I have to schedule the units on a weekly basis, how many hours. We have time sheets that have to be kept up. I have to check their activity sheets that have to be made at the end of each tour. Initially, to get the program going, we had to break the town up in various sections, and as a group we sit down and we discuss the problems in the various sections and when and how we're going to address these problems. Weather permitting, some problems occur on weekends and during the park activities, so it would be beneficial to cover those like on Saturdays and Sundays. Where other activities occur in the evening, we address those issues at that particular time.
Now, what do you expect from each officer in terms of their physical fitness? I'm sure they have to go through a physical exam.
Initially, to get on the bike patrol, you had to first volunteer. You have to be physically fit. You have to stay physically fit. You have to complete a complete physical. That's just to get into the academy. Then we did an intensive 3-day academy in Wellesley where we had courses on nutrition, physical fitness, the demands of a bike patrol officer, what's expected of them, and they have to accept this responsibility before they take the job. A written test was enacted and a physical test, and they had to pass these before they got onto the bike patrol.
Okay. What does the written test consist of?
Well, we had 3 days of classes, half-day classes. One area was on the bike mechanics, how it affects the bike patrol, how it affects the officer over a period of time, the type of nutrition that a bike officer would have to continue to maintain, ability to ride a bike, just general physical fitness, warm-ups, cool-downs. We had tests on that. We had a test on nutrition, on the bike laws. We're expected to teach bike safety as well as know it. Laws with regards to the police officer being out about in the community as far as parking violations, bike violations, and how to issue citations, how to address different problems that we might encounter out in the street, whether they be traffic control or crowd control at parks, and how we address just generally different situations that we run into.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
We just did next.
Reaching back in the old brain. Can you see down there or not?
No. Probably from your name tag up. What the way I'm shooting.
You're gonna ask me the advantages.
Yeah.
Some advantages. All right.
Why don't you stand this way? We're gonna stop the cut. And go back the other way. It's too dark. Alright. We're rolling.
Officer Burton, can you tell me what, in your opinion, are there more advantages than disadvantages to the bike patrol?
Oh, most definitely. There's a lot of advantages. First of all, it's a lot more cost effective than a mountain bike patrol, where a cruiser would cost about $20,000. Mountain bikes, the way we equip them, are about $1,000. It creates a more physically fit police officer. A lot more areas are accessible on a mountain bike that would be in a
police cruiser.
Now, in terms of being, would you say that another advantage is that you're more visible to the community?
Oh, most definitely. You're out there. It's a real effective way for community policing. You're out there talking to the public. It's a lot more visible than foot patrol.
Would you say they're less intimidated?
Oh, most definitely. Especially with the different uniforms that we have, they're a lot more, friendly to the public, less military.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Shaking me like a piano too. That's better. Okay, we're rolling.
Romer, right?
Yes.
Officer Romer, can you tell me, in your opinion, is having a bike patrol, is it important within the Ashland community?
Yes, it's very important. It's a great way to reach the public. On these bikes, we hit areas like the downtown area, the business district. We go to all the parks in town, and we get into the neighborhoods. It's a wonderful way to meet the community, and we also reach the children. We get to talk to the kids and interact with the kids, tell them the importance of bike safety, and it's a nice way to hear the concerns of the public as well. The residents tell us their concerns about problem areas in their neighborhood or problem areas in town that they'd like us to deal with.
So it sends out more of a positive image then?
Yes, it's a very positive image. On the mountain bikes, it's much more accessible to the public as far as patrolling. We reach the public and we get to talk to them and interact with them on a positive basis.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. That wasn't that bad, was it?
It was wonderful.
That's it?
That's it. And then last one.
I don't know if he ever wipes out.
Any other, is that too short? Want me to say something else?
Do you ever took any spells?
I'm trying to think of
How, do
something
you have to
I
ride
could say.
differently? I mean, defensively and stuff.
Oh
You're
yeah, how
out
about if
there
I
riding
ask you
with
that?
traffic and stuff.
How are the different methods that you use when riding? Would that be alright? Are there different tactics that you use when you're on the bike patrol compared to another officer? Or
Yeah, he's faster than the other guys.
Like training and stuff, you mean? Or?
yeah, like do each officer? Would you say that, in your opinion, does each officer basically follow the same guidelines, or do you use different guidelines?
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Alright, let's do one more beat.
Okay. Would you say that each officer uses the same guidelines, or do they use different techniques when riding?
Well, when we're riding, we use the safe motor vehicle laws of the roadway, and we ride with the flow of traffic, and we do obey the laws of the roadway on the bicycles. Also, we've been through some intensive training, which prepares us on off-road as well as on-road riding, and we're ready for just about any obstacle or any occurrence on the bikes and that might occur for us. So we're
Okay. What has been part of the intensive training?
it was a 3-day class that we went to, and they teach you everything you need to know from A to Z about being a police officer on a bike. It was a very, very important course, and we all did real well. It was a very enjoyable thing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Wherever you want me.
Okay.
Can we swap the second I take a look at one of these guys? I'm gonna
You're
crack
gonna
up.
Are you gonna start laughing?
Well,
No, you
once
need
I
the
look at it-
background. You need the background.
No, you won't laugh. We're not gonna look
We
at
can have the height chart in the background.
You need the background.
Oh, okay, you want me over here?
No, you'd have to stand right here for the height chart to do the background. Scott would have
Just
to move
focus on
otherwise.
something.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna make you
That's
laugh.
fine, whatever, yeah.
We'll be thinking.
And we're rolling.
Okay. Being part of the bike patrol, it's an important positive image in terms of community relations. When someone sees you on the bike, what do you think their first reaction is?
Well, at first, it's a positive reaction, but at first, because we were so new to the area, you got a lot of double takes. People didn't really know what to think. They'd see a bike, they'd see a guy on a bike, then they'd put together that he was an actual officer. We're a lot more accessible to the public. especially now with the promotion of the community policing and the backing from Chief Kinder, we're a lot more accessible to the public. In a cruiser, it's sort of like a shield, you know, from the general public. Now you're on a bike, you're actually like the old foot patrol, but now you're on a bike, and people feel more comfortable coming up to you. You seem a lot less harmful on a bike than you do in a cruiser. So it's easier for people to come up and talk to you, and questions about the bike and how long you've been out there and so on and so forth. But it's a great reaction.
So you'd say they're going to be less intimidated seeing you on a
Oh,
bike?
absolutely, because you're doing something that everybody else does. You know, the latest craze with the bicycles and whatnot, people going out, getting bikes, riding around, it's become very popular. So, you know, they want to compare the difference between the police bike to their bike, and they want to ask the questions and what kind of training and how, you know, how much we've done with the bikes. And the more and more they see us out there with the community policing, the more and more we ride, and it helps with the reaction. It's nice. It's been real nice.
Okay, thank you.
Also,
That was good.
this spring there was an incident where a van almost ran into a bicycle officer.
Hold on.
Beer around here.
Officer Blas, can you tell me, in your opinion, what some of the key elements are for the bike patrol in terms of community policing?
Well, with the bike patrol, we're able to interact more closely with the public. For example, if we're
Yes, that question again, but so much street ride. I need to hold the mic closer to his mouth.
All right.
Take two.
Officer Blas, can you tell me, in your opinion, what some of the key elements are in terms of community policing?
with the bike patrol, actually with the bike patrol, it's more of an interactive tool with the public. We can actually drive right up on a bicycle and start talking with a citizen who happens to be walking on the sidewalk, as opposed to the cruiser, which is actually almost like a barrier to some people. With a bike, you just go up like an average citizen and start talking. It's easy to interact that way.
So you think they'd be most likely to provide you with information then?
Absolutely. It's a lot easier for a person to walk up to somebody on a bicycle. We're not moving as fast as we would in a cruiser, so it's easy. And as the kids like to come up as well, it makes it easy for them. I think they're less intimidated by a large cruiser or something of that sort.
Are there any changes that you'd like to see happen, like within next year for the bike patrol, or?
Actually, this year went pretty well. I wouldn't change a whole lot. We have some good guys on the team. We were out just about every event that the town put on, so I'm pretty satisfied with the way it went. I wouldn't change a whole lot.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. What?
It's doing like SOS behind you on the blind.
Oh, really? Who was it? Gary?
For Kathy. And then,
Okay.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
hold it up. I only saw one.
What is your first name?
Peter.
Sorry, I didn't introduce you guys.
I know that. Tom Kinders, nice to meet you.
Anytime?
Anytime.
Your police department has really emphasized that the bike patrol is a major part of community policing, which is important.
I can't. He's scrolling.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, it's not your fault.
You were able to print one.
Want me to start over again?
Yes, right over
Take a
Charlie.
step forward, Pete.
Yeah, but you can't read it. Like you said, we weren't going to be able to read it.
Anytime you're ready.
Anytime. Your officers who are on the bike patrol have emphasized that the bike patrol is a major important aspect of community policing, but there has been terms of a question about funding. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
The program was originally funded by the Executive Office of Public Safety, which is under the direction of Secretary Kathleen M. O'Toole. The funding we received in FY '96 was $20,000, and we've just been notified by the Executive Office of Public Safety that we've been funded again for $20,000. About $8,000 of that, or about $8,500 of that, is going to go to the Community Bicycle Patrol.
Okay. Now, each year, do you get refunded again for the bike patrol, or?
You have to submit a grant application, and if they think that your program merits the funding, then you are funded. I mean, there's a possibility you wouldn't be funded, but our program's been extremely successful in town.
Now, what would be a situation where they would not decide that it's merit in terms of, you know, giving you the money that you need?
When you turn in a community policing grant, you put in a number of programs. Child safe program, stranger safety program, programs on things like domestic violence. So it's got to be a well-rounded program to be accepted. If they think it's not a well-rounded program, they may reduce your funding or you may get no funding. But we've been very fortunate over the past 3 years.
Okay, so this is the third year they've had the bike patrol?
This is the second year we've had the
Second
bike patrol. The first year that we were funded was very minimal money. It was we got a grant for about $7,000, and there was a lot of things we had to do with that. But initially, we did send one officer to Cobweb School, and then some of the businessmen in town were nice enough to contribute money to the program so that we could buy equipment. We also did a fundraiser. So the whole program, with the 5 officers going to school, all their uniforms, the 5 mountain bikes that we have now, cost the taxpayers nothing. The whole bike patrol has been funded for the entire 2 years with the grant from the Executive Office of Public Safety.
All right, Chief Kinder, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I wanted to ask how many arrests have been made.
Okay. You want me to ask that question? Can you tell me in terms of a law enforcement perspective, how many arrests have been made with officers on the bike patrol?
Well, there's been a number of arrests made by the officers on the bike patrol, but I think it's more important to look at the deterrent effect it's had. We've had approximately 5 or 6 arrests from the bike patrol, and a couple of those arrests were for sizable amounts of drugs. And in fact, on Marathon Day, it was, I believe it was Officer Blass and Officer Bowden who, along the marathon route, arrested an individual who had about $1,000 worth of cocaine. It was all prepackaged and ready for sale that day. But I think it's more important to point out the deterrent effect. The last 2 summers, we had a lot of vandalism in our state parks. We had a lot of fires, and the bike patrol has been going in there now, and we've had very, very little vandalism, and we've had no fires in the state parks, which is good. So it's a good deterrent effect.
So it's a good method of crime prevention?
It's exactly what it's supposed to do.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I think a lot of people are curious as to that. Can you actually enroll and start anytime you're ready?
The main goal for any police station that uses a bike patrol as a method of law enforcement is to increase crime prevention. But it also reflects an important message that the bike patrol is an important part of community policing in helping these officers to do their job more effectively in providing a safer environment. For Ashland News, I'm Peter Surratt. I should have said for Channel 8 News. Oh, WACA News. WACA News?
Yep.
WACA News, okay.
That was walking in that was perfect. It's like you just stopped right at the right point. I could see the actual really sign.
Okay.
Alright, we're rolling anytime you're ready.
The main goal for any police station that uses a bike patrol as a method of law enforcement is to increase crime prevention detection. But it also reflects another important message, and that is community policing, and helping these officers to do their jobs more effectively in providing a safer environment. For WACA News, I'm Peter Surratt.
That's good.
Want to try it again?
And we're rolling.
truck in. See that truck over there? They're going to be eventually bringing a truck in. It's going to come right over here. Now this long tube that goes underneath there is going to be sucking all the berries out. Okay? And it's going to pump them up, and they're going to load right into the truck over there. Now, I'm not too sure. Judy.
Sure. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. Test. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. Testing. Test. Okay.
Sure thing. We're going to hold off just a second. Just going to
Okay.
pull the truck back in.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Judy.
Oh, that's what that truck.
And Cranberry,
No, but the other truck.
now that is filled with cranberry vines because you do get some vines. And what happens is, the vines get separated out and dumped into this one. So they have one truck for the vines, and they have one truck.
Behind us, if you could explain that for the viewers, okay?
You may want to,
Yeah.
might want to wait till the
Oh,
helicopter.
no, I wasn't saying it now. That's what I'm going to ask you. When it's done.
Okay.
I just wanted to let you know that I was
That's okay. Usually about cranberries, so. If you're asking me about government politics, I'd be in trouble.
And who do you think is going to win the election?
All right.
Okay.
And you want me looking right into the camera?
Yep, I'm on.
All right. Just look right at her. Don't worry about me.
Okay.
Okay. Can you explain to our viewers about the process that's going on behind us, the way the cranberries, they look all bunched together? Can you tell us what that's all about?
Sure.
Michael, you on the air?
Okay.
Good.
I'm on the air, but I'm going to be doing an interview any second. How can I help you, Ollie?
They have the check up here by quarter and 3.
Sure thing, I can do that. I saw her, but I couldn't give it to her because she was performing at the time.
This is the magician under the tent.
I already gave the magician his check.
Okay, I'll talk to you later.
Are you getting anything? I'm on. Coming through? Hello.
So, we're on okay.
I'll take one more bite.
What do you do when you're not the media supervisor?
Well, I'm the communications manager, so I'm always writing, doing a lot of layout newsletters for our own growers. We do grower advisories, try to help our growers as much as possible, since it is a membership sponsored organization. And then we also have a store that promotes cranberries. We sell the widest variety of cranberry products on the eastern seaboard. That's okay in Buzzards Bay. So it's
Oh, yeah, I've seen that one.
It's more of a gourmet foods specialty store.
They have wine too, don't they?
No.
They used to, I thought, at one point.
No, we just
No?
actually opened up in August, so it was pretty recent.
All right, let's do it while these people are loading up there.
Okay.
They're already loading.
you tell our viewers about the process of harvesting cranberries and a little bit about what's going on behind us here?
Well, what happens in cranberry harvesting, wet harvesting, the bogs behind us are flooded, and then what they do is they take a machine that looks like a big egg beater. Since the berries float and they have a big hollow air pocket in the center, what happens is the egg beater goes through, churns up the water, the berries float to the top of the water, and the folks that you see behind us, the waiters, they take these large boom boards and collect all the berries. The berries are then taken to one side where there is a large suction pump that sucks the berries up onto a waiting truck, and then those berries are taken to a processing plant where they're made for juices and for cranberry sauce that you have for Thanksgiving and any other processed foods.
Is that the only type of harvest is the wet harvest, or are there other harvests?
There's one other type of harvest. It's called the dry harvest, and the berries that you see in your stores, the fresh berries that you get in your bags, those are all dry harvested. What dry harvested berries are done using a machine, looks like a large lawnmower, and it has combs in the bottom and a conveyor belt that kind of brings all the berries up to a burlap bag, and then they're all taken into a big wooden crate and sent off again to a processing plant or to a receiving plant.
How are they actually processed here at the in Ocean Spray or land, or are they processed someplace else? Where are the cranberries processed for sauces and juice?
Well, the actual berries are processed for Ocean Spray in Lakeville and Middleborough area. Some of the other berries are processed at a different location. It all depends on the distributor.
How many different growers are in this area?
We have roughly 500 growers in the Massachusetts area, and that's a pretty substantial amount considering how many berries we actually harvest in a year.
What will the harvest be this year? Do you have any idea of how large the harvest will be?
Well, there were predictions by the National Agricultural Statistics Service of 1.97 million barrels for the state of Massachusetts, but those estimates may be a bit over-exaggerated. I'd hate to, because cranberry farming, like any other farming, is so unpredictable, but it should be a good crop. We're looking probably at 1.8 million barrels for the year.
Lots of cranberry sauce for Thanksgiving then, right?
Oh, Thanksgiving and all the other times of the year. You know, it's not just for Thanksgiving or the holidays anymore these days.
Thank you.
Just one other question I wanted to ask.
Okay, go ahead.
What makes this part of the state, this part of the country, good for growing cranberries?
This part of the state is a very good area for harvesting cranberries and growing cranberries because there is a very abundant water supply, sandy soil, which is a type of habitat that cranberries thrive in, and the area is also good because it doesn't experience the harsh winters that, say, the inner parts of the state may experience.
Cranberries grown in other parts of the country besides?
Yeah, cranberries are grown in 4 or 5 other states, Wisconsin, Washington, Oregon, and New Jersey. Massachusetts makes up about 42 to 43% of the world supply of cranberries. Wisconsin is a close second, supplying 41-42% of the world's cranberries. So between those two states, you're accounting for over 80% of the world's cranberries, which is a pretty phenomenal statistic. The other locations are also very good.
How long does the harvest season last?
It goes from second week in September to late October.
So we're just kind of almost in the middle of the season.
Yeah, a little past the middle, but it's still a lot of harvesting going on.
Okay, can I go over here?
Yeah.
He's gonna go just
Those 4 poles there are where the suction pump is, so they're taking the cranberries
and it tried to make it even smaller, try to push the cranberries over as much as possible using that rake. Sorry, I forget your name again? Okay, Paul, why don't you follow me? We may be able to get you up on top. Yeah, you can go up. All right. Why don't we head over? Actually, do you want to get a shot of this? Yeah. See a little closer. Might get a better shot.
at me. Look at me.
Forget about me.
Okay.
He's not even there, okay?
That's all right.
Okay.
I need to stand this side, Barbara.
Okay.
Actually, why don't we...
Why the radar, the train in the background? Yeah, that's even better.
Can we do it so that I'm in the shade, not otherwise I'll be squinting into the sun.
Yeah.
How about forward enough? Yeah. Like here?
That's,
You just step in. Okay.
yeah. You can still,
That's good.
let me get the other side.
Whatever. Go ahead.
John, we understand that Edaville Railroad has just reopened after about 4 or 5 years of being closed. What was involved in getting the train running again and open?
Well, the railroad shut down in January '92 after running pretty much continuously for about 45 years. It shut down for a combination of reasons, some financial, some due to site issues. The railroad has been on a rented site for the last 40 years. The railroad is a tenant of the Cranberry Company, and there were issues between the railroad and the operators of the Cranberry business, some of them economic and some other. And bringing it back required putting together a whole new team because the trains were sold, the carousel and other rides were sold, and the contents of the old Edaville Museum were sold. And it required a substantial investment to acquire new equipment, to restore the track to operable condition, and then to just put the whole business plan together. It's a long process. It took from that period until 1995 to sign a lease on the property so that we could even have that kind of a foundation to work with. And the track work took probably a year and a half to 2 years before that was safe to run. We've acquired equipment from a variety of sources, steam locomotives from Indiana and Iowa and California of various sizes and makes, 2 diesels which are running today, coaches from Colorado, and we've had an excursion car fabricated to our own specs to be a prototype for some others. We're also running 3 coaches on a lease from the group in Maine that bought the Edaville trains in 1992. So putting that all together has been a major undertaking. There are other pieces that are still sort of waiting in the wings. We have a number of collectors of museum-type memorabilia that would be very happy to provide their collections to us, and we think would be great attractions, but the logistics of, again, taking care of the site relationship issues and so on are complicated. It's taken about 18 investors so far to put together the financing to bring it this far, and there's a lot more that's needed, but we've made a lot of progress, and this summer we were able to safely run trains for the first time in 4 years. So we opened on July 5th, and we have served, I don't know what the number is exactly, but I would say it's in the 25,000 riders range during those summer weekends up till now on Columbus Day. So we think that's a pretty good record of showing that this brand name is alive and well, the demand for the trains is alive and well, and that if it's fully brought back, people will come back to it in numbers.
Will the trains be running all year long, or did they close down in the winter?
Actually, they never ran all year long. They always closed down in January and then reopened in the spring, usually in May or June. Right now, we have an issue. We've brought this railroad back for open-air operations, but heated coaches are at a premium right now, and so we're trying to put together whether or not we'll be able to do a Christmas season, as has been done in the past, because it does require heat, needless to say, both in terms of the building spaces and in terms of the coaches. In addition to which, the old Edaville light show, if you have looked around the property today, you can see some of the old lights still dangling from the trees. All those have to be replaced, and on a 5-mile route, that's a tremendous job. If we do a Christmas this year, it will be on a much shorter loop, with the idea of working towards a full revival later.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the ride itself is like and what our viewers will see?
The ride is a 5.5-mile loop, goes through cranberry bogs, around a 300-acre reservoir that supplies water to the bogs, which of course have to be flooded for the harvest, and through some woods, some fields. It passes through what used to be a miniature village called Peacedale, which unfortunately was largely destroyed by vandals in the interim while the railroad was not operating. Will have to be rebuilt. And then it comes back here to the station after that 5.5-mile loop.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure.
Okay.
Enjoy.
know about the railroad bar.
Okay. Can you tell us all about the Edaville Railroads?
Well, the Edaville Railroad goes back to the middle 40s and has run since that time and grown and grown and grown. And about 1990, the previous owner gave it up and sold off most of the equipment. The 3 cars in which we're riding now actually are on lease to us because we're short of cars at the moment. And we are building up new cars, getting a whole new operation going here. The railroad, as we're coming up on to the church on the left-hand side, it is called our Memorial Church. It was built in memory of Mr. Ellis Atwood, who was the founder of this original railroad. And he was killed in a very tragic accident here in 1950. He is interred in a cemetery right over a few hundred yards through the woods. And no train ever goes by that point but what the whistle doesn't blow. We do that in memory of Mr. Atwood, and we like to think that he can hear this whistle blow and know we're still running his railroad. There are a number of different sites that you can see up and down the line. We're in the process of renovating many of them, reestablishing a great many of them. The trip is about 40 minutes long, 5.5 miles around the railroad. And more than that I can say, it's just a great fun to be here and be with the kids and go up and down the tracks and talk to them.
Can you tell us a little bit about the train and the car that we're riding on? A little bit about the historical value of it?
Yes, this particular car, the baggage car, was built around 1892, and the one just forward.
Why don't we come inside for that question?
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Perhaps we get over here.
Okay. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the historical value of the train and about the car that we're riding in right now?
This particular car was built around 1892. Came from a railroad way up in Rangeley, Maine, up in the Maine woods. And when Mr. Atwood bought this railroad in the early 40s, this and several other cars came down with it. The one just ahead of it came as a part of it, but it was built around the middle 1800s. And the one in the front of this particular train is a replica, and it was built here at the railroad in, I think it was around 1950. And if you look at it, it's a pretty great replica. It looks like the original cars. Those are the only 3 cars remaining on this line that have been here for a number of years.
Some of the other cars on the railroad are a little bit different. They're more open. Can you tell us about that? How that was constructed and the purpose?
The 2 of those open cars were built originally out in Colorado. We bought it when we were reestablishing the railroad some 3-4 years ago. And we got the 2 diesel locomotives about the same time. Their history is back from Pennsylvania. They were originally in the steel mills, and they have been rebuilt in order to have them out here. We run the open cars because in the summertime, generally people enjoy riding in the open cars much better.
Can you tell us about some of the sites that we'll see along the 5.5 miles?
Yes, we're coming up right now, as I tell my riders, to the old lighthouse. And I love to tell the kids the lighthouse is there to protect the ships that come up for the sea. And then next to that is the church, which I described a little bit earlier. Further up on the left-hand side is the old sawmill. And I love to tell the kids that we're got to get that sawmill rebuilt so that we can rebuild some of these buildings along here. On the right-hand side, you'll see the gingerbread house. And further along that, you come to Mount Uran. Mount Uran is the highest point on this railroad, and it is named after Marcus Uran, a dear friend of Mr. Atwood's. They, together with several other cranberry growers many, many years ago, established the original Ocean Spray Cranberry Corporation. On top of the mountain is the Magic Castle, and we're reestablishing that along with the knights and so forth that belong in front of it. Then we go down this big steep hill. I love to tell the kids, take your deep breaths so your ears don't pop as we go down over the hill. Then we come across Peacedale, which was the original village that Mr. Atwood established many, many years ago. had behind his home before he ever had a railroad. He moved it over here in I think it was the early 50s, and it was quite a beautiful village. But the railroad was closed for 5.5 years, and the ravages of time and so forth have just done their work on it. We started this railroad up probably a year ahead of when those of us who run the trains themselves were ready to go. And so we're in the process of slowly building it up.
Are there any plans of making railroad stops at some of these historical sites in the future?
The future plans are quite grandiose, and yes, we just came by a beach back here, which was actually used as a beach. They used to haul people out to the beach, they get off, be able to get back on. Same way with the ball field, they used to be able to get on and off at the ball field and Peacedale. We're not ready for that quite yet, but we do hope that we're going to get to that point.
Is there anything else you'd like to add and tell our viewers about the railroad and the surroundings?
The only thing I just love to tell people is that we're pleased to have everyone aboard. We like to have them. I love to have the kids aboard particularly, and we appreciate their coming and being with us as my favorite line is, we reestablished the greatest little railroad in the East.
And just for editing purposes, can you tell us and spell your name for us?
My name is William Copeland, C-O-P-E-L-A-N-D.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Maximum few seconds. That'd be too long.
Alright, actually, I'm gonna sit where you're sitting so I can film him from the side.
Yep. Hey, you sit over there.
This way we get to see the movement. Okay? Why don't you sit over here? No, you sit where you
No,
are.
you stay where you are. Okay, I just thought that my arm wouldn't be stretching in front of the camera. All right. You ready? Okay. Can you tell us some of the things that you liked most about the Cranberry Festival and the Edaville Railroad?
Well, I like the Edaville Railroad because it's like fun looking at the all the cranberries and stuff. I sort of like cranberries, so I just like it.
Do you eat a lot of cranberry sauce?
No, that's one of the only things the cranberries I don't like.
Do you like cranberry juice?
Yeah, a lot. I love cranberries.
What are some of the things you did at the festival today?
Well, I hadn't really done too much. I just was walking around looking at things, at the animals and stuff, and this is my first ride in the train.
Did you watch them harvesting the cranberries?
Yes, I have, yeah.
What did you think about that?
It was pretty cool. I always like looking at them doing that. It looks pretty cool, like, with all the cranberries in that one bunch.
Do you think you may want to be a cranberry farmer when you grow up?
No. It looks pretty fun, but I still think, nah.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
A famous sports player or something.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Your turn. Is this the first time you've been to the Cranberry Festival here in Carver?
No.
What are some of the things you really enjoy about watching the Cranberry Festival?
Oh, I like the hay ride and I like the train ride and I learned a lot of stuff about cranberries, how they pick it.
Could you tell our viewers what you learned about how they harvest cranberries?
Well, what they do is like they flood the cranberry bogs and they take this machine that picks them all and sucks them in, and then they have this machine that picks the good ones and the soft ones. And
do you think you'll think about that the next time you have cranberry sauce or cranberry juice for dinner?
Yeah, but I don't really eat cranberry sauce. I don't really like that.
Do you think you might want to be a cranberry farmer when you grow up?
It's a choice. It looks like fun.
Think it looks like fun?
Yeah, it looks pretty fun.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Enjoy your ride.
Thank you.
What's your name?
Ashley.
Have you been on the railroad before?
What?
Have you ever gone on this railroad before? What did you see today? What did you learn about how they harvest cranberries? They float full of water. Yep. And they push them together. And they rig them. And then they pump them into the truck. Okay, now what's your name?
Ashley.
Can you do me a favor? Can you just look out the window for a minute? Can you look a little bit towards your mother a little? Just your mom? Look towards your mom a little more. Okay, that's good. All right, thank you. Thanks. It's like walking along a ship or something. Only
Yes, I know. I was watching you. You seasick?
no.
You just look a little.
Are you having fun? Oh, look at the little house.
Punch tickets and talk to the kids and stuff. I don't do a spiel, but I give them a lot of information.
Do you work for a full-side railroad? Yeah, a few of them are like real trained ones. Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell that it's either out talking about them. You can't find a bathroom. Oh, you brought the camera, you did? I know. Isn't it? It's cute.
Thank you very much for being with us. Oh, sure. Come on, guys. Come over here so Mom wants to get a picture. Right here. Here we go. Come on. Come on. Can you get us all?
Rivers.
Yep.
You got to scrunch down.
That's cute. All right, smile.
Here we go, guys. Smile for Mom. All set? Okay, kids.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Hey, give me 5.
What a nice shot.